the hell was that? So, Patreon-sponsored review time, and this is one of those cases where I got commissioned to watch the first 2 episodes of a show that I haven't seen before. That happened a little while back with Mr. Robot, which I was intrigued by. No, I haven't watched more, not because I didn't think it looked good, because, time. Guys, until I'm in a position where this is my how I pay my bills, I just don't really have time for this stuff. So, but I've got another one of those. And in this case, it's the OA. Now, it's one of the awkward things that can happen with Patreon-sponsored reviews is if I can tell, either because of general tone or context, or no outright because they say it, what the person commissioning me is hoping to get out of it. Like, for example, the patron who sponsored me reviewing Titans wanted me to tear it apart, and then I ended up really liking it. So, I can't remember if the person who commissioned me for the OA thought I was gonna like it. If you did, I hope I'm not gonna break your heart too much. Now, that having been said, I'm actually really glad that I saw this, because trying to figure out why I hate it, because I do, I hate it, was actually a really interesting exercise, because on paper, I shouldn't. Knowing the kinds of stuff that I like and other shows that I've enjoyed, thinking on this and going, why do I hate this so much, was actually kind of an enlightening experience for me, a little bit. But we'll get into all that. So, the OA. If you don't know what it is, if you haven't seen any of it, it is the latest go at someone trying to build a sci-fi-esque story out of a mystery. Out of, we don't know what's going on, don't you want to find out? Which is a pretty old chestnut, and it is littered with shows that didn't make it past 1 season. Or that, had a hastily wrapped up 2nd season. And maybe this one is good. Maybe it got good later, but I'm going to deflect that defense of this thing right now, which is that nothing that I saw in these first 2 episodes would make me want to stick around to see if it got better later. So, even if it does, even if it got significantly better after this, it blew the first impression. So, okay. When it opens, we have a young woman. I mean, I say young woman, I guess she's in her she's younger than I am. So, in my mind, she's a young woman. You darn kids! Get off my lawn! She is, she's taken into custody when she is spotted, attempting to jump off. Well, no, not attempting. She does jump off a bridge, and she does not die. She doesn't even flatline, though she asks whether or not she did. And, in the process of them trying to find out who she is, it turns out that she is a woman who went missing, I think it was 7 years previously. But the thing is, when she went missing, she was blind. But she can see now. And she is super vague about everything. And yet has this really odd thing where she won't... we know she's capable of lying, because we see her lie about stuff at a few points. But she's incapable, apparently, and cannot think... that there's a better judgment when people ask, "What's your name?" or "Are you Prairie?" I forget what her last name of the woman who vanished was, and she says, "I'm the OA." So there's our mystery. Who is this woman? Where'd she come from? Why can she see? What's the OA? Why do I care? Oh, look, I don't. That's jumping ahead a little bit, though. Okay, so in terms of setting up something that is mysterious, that is not entirely clear what's going on, that is presumably going to answer a lot of stuff later. As much as I said that there are plenty of shows out there, that start with this and just go nowhere because they whether they are well executed or not, they don't pick up the following. It's basically a heck of a lot of shows trying to chase Lost in a lot of ways. Most of these things feel like. And it's arguable how well Lost even managed to maintain itself, though at least it got multiple seasons out of it. And the thing is, there are shows that I can think of that are strange right out the gate, that I don't know what's going on, and I am presuming that later on I will understand it better, that I enjoy quite a bit. Like some examples, like I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I've only ever seen the first season of Lost, but I really liked the first season of Lost. I really like Legion, which kind of has a similar, general vibe going on. It opens just weird as heck. So, I can enjoy this. I mean, heck, even Doctor Who. At this point, it's second nature to me, but, that first episode, either one, the very first episode, An Unearthly Child, which barely explains anything, or even Rose explains very little. So this can work for me, but it doesn't here. And I think the major reason why it doesn't is I had nothing to cling to. So with those examples that I gave and other ones that I could think of where I've enjoyed them, there was something that I could relate to, wrap my head around, or just kind of grab onto and go, okay, this is my stabilizing element while I try and navigate all the weirdness. It's like you're in this gale force wind of nonsense, but this is the stable metal bar in concrete that you can grab onto. Okay, I'm not going to get swept away. I can stabilize here and figure this out. That metaphor probably makes no sense, but that's where my brain went. But in any case, so with Lost, as much as that show was weird right off the bat, plane crash on island, passengers need to survive. That's a stabilizing, solid thing for me to start with. Doctor Who started with Rose, average normal girl. And even the Doctor, it explained kind of a bit about his deal fairly early on, but a couple of things cool, this dynamic, I get it. And even something like Legion, I would say in the very first episode, I kind of latched on to Aubrey Plaza's character. But that was the thing. It kind of hooked me on one or two characters as it went along, so I can go, ooh, I feel like I got you. There's all these other people don't know what's going on, but I get you, so I can start there. And then I got stable enough where even as the show got weirder, especially around her character, I still felt okay because I had that initial thing that I could hold on to. There's nothing for me to hold on to in the OA. It doesn't do a very good job of establishing how realistic the world is that this is meant to be taking place in. What I mean by that is, again, to make the comparison to, say, Legion gives you the vibe very early on that it's not just the characters and the situations that are strange, the world is strange. The world has a surreal feeling to it. So that loosens up my willful suspension of disbelief, because I know that whatever we're dealing with, the baseline is not standard reality. With this, it feels like it's supposed to be realistic, but nobody acts like a person. Nobody talks the way a human would talk. And most people don't act or react the way that, people as I understand them would behave. And it doesn't establish its world and its setting as stylized enough for me to roll with that as an artistic choice. It just feels like it's written by but it's written by a machine that doesn't really understand people. It feels like it's written by an algorithm half the time. And these characters I either have no reason to invest in, or the one that they sink the most time into, like to get me to understand who he is, I hate. And that would be Steve. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to hate Steve, but if that's the case, I'd say they did the job too well, because I hate him so much that my gut reaction is to the idea that this show redeems him is to tell the show to go to hell. Like, no. And, like, that could very well, again, be part of the message of the thing later on, like, this sort of maybe justifying why he deserves redemption, if it even goes that way. I have no idea, but I can tell you I hated him. And I hated that the titular character was latching on to him like he was gonna be her lifeline. I was just thinking, like, no, not this guy, please. Like, there was something about, okay, I guess somewhat spoilers. Now, I mean, I'm only talking the first 2 episodes, so take it as you will. But when you've got a teenager, and, like, I understand he's a kid, and kids do stupid stuff, and I'm not necessarily saying somebody should be condemned forever for stuff they did as a kid. He punches somebody in the throat. He could have killed him. And he didn't care. And he had no reason to do it. Besides, in that instant, he was frustrated because of something that had nothing to do with this kid in the first place. And then the show has the OA. I want to call her the BS, but I'm resisting. The OA pretends to be his stepmother and goes to this parent-teacher conference and talks the teacher out of pushing to have him removed from the school. No! Like, I'm not saying that there's no path forward for this kid, but you remove somebody who punched someone in the friggin' throat from that school. And how dare you friggin' pretentious show, frame this like it's a good thing that he's still there. Bite me! What in the hell? And, like, pretentious is a good word for this thing, too. The point at which I snapped. The first episode is about an hour, 20 minutes. Second one's about an hour, and I guess that's the standard length after that. So the episode just kind of goes for a while, and it's nearly an hour in. When the credits roll, a Netflix presentation shows up. And that was the point at which I started swearing loudly at the TV. Because that was like that's one of the most head stuck up its own ass things that I've seen a TV show do in a long freaking time. And then it moves along with the OA giving her own life story of her childhood and how she went blind and sort of a situation that she ends up in at the end of the second episode, or at least in the flashback. It happens at the end of the second episode, so obviously this is in her own past. And that worked better for me than the first episode, and I found myself thinking, I might be able to get into this story. Like, it's the story she's telling, not the framing device. Like, I do not care. But I might be able to get into the story she's telling if it was presented straight. If that was just being told to me, as opposed to this ridiculous framing device that is all these elements that I hate, which include that kid, include the fact that she calls herself the OA. I'm like, what? And, like, most of the worst dialogue is in the modern day setting, in the quote-unquote real world. So, like, when it's her telling a story of her own childhood, I can go with the more stilted stuff a bit better because it's framed as a narrative, so I can allow for that license a little bit better. And you need to realize what a sucker I should be for this, because I've mentioned this before. I am such a sucker for stories about stories and the power of storytelling. And it looks like he's trying to go for something like that, but I still hate it. So it teed up to take a whack at something that I almost always have a soft spot for. No. Just God, no. This thing. Like, about the one and only thing that I was kind of like, oh, and this isn't necessarily a praise for the show, it's a praise for the cast, I mean, from a writing perspective, because most of what I'm complaining about is writing. I haven't really mentioned the performances. Performances are fine. They're fine. Like I said, people don't speak like human beings, but that's a writing. But the problem is the writing. The problem is the scripts. I hate these scripts. But the other thing that I'll mention, because I wouldn't be, given my own, gender standing, I wouldn't be surprised if this was an aspect or an element for why it was suggested to me. There is a young trans male character played by a young trans male actor, which is cool. And I like that. However, this is one of a handful of characters that, at least in the 2 episodes that I saw, we basically get no proper introduction to and is just kind of there. The ones we spend a lot of time with are the OA, Steve, then a bit of time with Steve's teacher. And, there's a couple of other characters. There's this young trans boy. There's, Steve's, I don't know if he's actually his friend, but he's, kind of his lackey, I suppose. Because Steve's a bully. Monstrously so. And, if I didn't make it clear up to this point, screw this kid. Seriously. Yeah, I didn't like it. I should have kept a tally for how many times I shouted at the TV some variant of, what is this? What am I watching? Why any of it? It felt like it came in and just assumed that being mysterious would be enough of a hook in and of itself, but it's not. It's not hard to be mysterious. It's actually damn easy to be mysterious. You present something and don't explain what the heck it is. That's not hard. What's hard is getting us invested in the mystery by getting us invested in the characters, or at the very least giving us some stabilizing something so that we know where we stand with some element as we try and wrap our heads and judge this weirdness. And this thing fails to do either one of those. Oh man. And like I said, maybe it gets better later. I've got a coworker who's been pestering me to see this show for ages. And, I told him, why, might have been a little mean. I think I went into his office and said, what did I do to you that you'd recommend this show to me? But, yeah, nothing about what I saw in these first 2 episodes would make me ever want to keep going. So, like I said at the beginning, even if it gets better, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. Because it blew the initial impression so badly and rubbed me the wrong way so hard. So that's the OA. First 2 episodes. I have a distinct feeling I'm going to tick off a lot of people with this. It seems to be a really well-regarded show from the people who've seen it. This is probably a minority opinion. I'm not trying to tick anybody off. I'm not trying to troll. I just really hated it. But have you seen the OA, or at least the first 2 episodes of it? If you have, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Whole bunch of stuff that you can do, because there's buttons and links, there's merch, there's Patreon. It's a huge help. And as I mentioned, this very episode of this very video is sponsored through a Patreon commission. But click on stuff down below. It'll take you to those places. Check it out, or don't. You don't have to, because assuming that it didn't piss you off with this review, at the end of the day, you are also the council. And me, I'm just running the meetings. So until next time, this council is adjourned.